We good? Okay. 6 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start with our call to order. Start with our activity reports, excuse me. Once we get through our consent agenda, I am going to move things around a little bit. I'm going to take item D under the fire department, Stearns County Municipal Aid Agreement, mutual aid agreement first. Just because Andy shared they've got some trainings they need to get to, so we'll get him out of here so that he can do that. Otherwise, everything else we will take in order. We do have an update on our agenda for the unpaid trash bills. As for my activity report, we had the Stearns County Municipal League meeting over at the Legion. Painesville hosted that. We had a decent turnout. Could have been a lot better, but for everyone coming out to the southwestern side of the county with all the road construction, we'll take what we can get. Hopefully we can get some more people coming in and expand on those meetings in the future. We had a nice presentation from the county attorney on the prevalence of trafficking, drugs and not drug trafficking, but more sex trafficking and things like that, both of children and adults, and how that works and plays on various things. I thought it was very informative and very helpful to hear that. We had our working session last week. We were all in attendance there, so I won't rehash on that, but certain things are moving behind the scenes to follow up on that. We had a safety board meeting last week, Wednesday. Recapped some of the work comp injuries that have happened in the city over the last couple of years. We also talked about some things that we can do to prevent issues going forward. Tarek is going to look into getting some different technology in here to help eliminate some safety hazards, and then probably apply for some grants for out at the liquor store for some shelving and things like that to help on some concerns there. At the department head meeting this week, this morning, and then last week as well, nothing terribly exciting coming out of those. Lastly, I just want to touch on, I think we've all heard about the threats over at the school. I'm not going to rehash any of that. The school's talked about what went on, but I did hear from Stearns County Attorney Janelle Kendall regarding Officer Eck and the reports that he made and the way he responded to that. County Attorney John Kendall had nothing but phenomenal things to say about Logan and the reports that he did and the work that he did on that case. So for an officer who's just joined us a few months ago to receive such high praise, I think is really worth calling out and recognizing. So Cody, thank you for being here tonight. I know you played a big part in training Logan, and I'm guessing you've responded to that in some way, shape, or form, but thank you to the whole department for responding the way that you guys did. And I've reached out to Logan independently, but just let him know we're proud of the work he did there. So that's all I've got. Going over to Neil.
October 11th, we had policy and procedure meeting.
Yes, thank you. I put that one on my mind.
I guess the biggest thing was we talked about expanded hours for motor vehicle, and that's on the agenda tonight. Wednesday last week, the Green Roof meeting, and I couldn't make it, but I did give them a written report. And then the council work session that we all attended on the 20th. And the only other thing I got is in a couple of weeks, make sure everybody votes. There's a lot of important seats all the way up and down from local, state, federal, and make sure we make an effort to vote.
Thank you. Megan could not make it tonight. She's feeling a little under the weather, so that's why she's not here. So, Jean.
Well, I attended the same couple meetings, special council meeting and the Stearns Municipal League meeting. I had an EDAP meeting last week and a planning commission meeting and a chamber board meeting.
Right. I think you've got some checks to pick up from the municipal meeting. All right, Paul.
Trail Board met last week. We're looking at new funding to go to the second round or the second try at this. And there's some deadlines that we have to meet, so that was discussed, and the working session with the city council.
One thing I did forget about, along with the policies and procedures meeting, was this morning we had a presentation from a company that's new to the U.S. I don't know how much they want us to share publicly yet, so I'll keep details slim. And Tarek, you can fill in if you know. But they might want to put in a pretty big industrial plant here in the Painesville area. It's something where we looked at what they do. It's a very environmentally conscious company, something that would be a huge benefit, I think, to our local community. They're talking about coming in on about 40 or so acres of land, would not need or want TIF or tax abatement. So Tarek and I shared, I think Ron was there this morning, so was Chuck. We all sort of expressed that we have some due diligence concerns we probably need to flush out, make sure it's not too good to be true, but they have our support in moving forward at this point. So we'll see where that takes us, but that's a very promising development that hopefully will pan out. So, Tarek.
Okay.
Then I'll come to you, Ron, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, yeah, I get to go first this time. We had the policies and procedures at EDAP along with Gene, Trail Board, a couple other things here. The Lodging Tax Advisory Board with the Chamber, so we had that last week as well. Next time we meet, we met with somebody from Explore Minnesota this time that is kind of helping guide us on the ways that we can get the most bang for our buck in terms of advertising and marketing the community. Next time we meet, next month in November, we would talk about what we plan on doing for the winter months. So we're hoping to have at least a plan for that period, and then of course we'll start planning for the summertime after that. And finally, we met with the Friends of the Library and the library folks at the Washburn Court building, and we met with a few architects that were pitching to us their ideas and their plans for what they could do to that building in terms of a library. So they're supposed to all three of them submit a proposal to us. We're expecting it in the coming weeks, and at that point we'll sit down with all the stakeholders and kind of decide which route we want to take.
Any questions for Tarek? All right, Ron.
Okay, thank you. First of all, the leaf pickup is scheduled for Saturday, compostable bags only, and they need to have them out on the curbs by 7 a.m. Parts are getting winterized right now, and anybody who still wants to make reservations for next year is very welcome to do so. Fishing pier, sometime early November, that will be getting pushed out for the winter also. You will see crews out street sweeping now until the weather turns south on us. At the Trail Board meeting, just to add on to that, there's actually two grants we are going to be looking at pursuing. One is the Transportation Alternatives, that's the one that we applied for last year. The other one is a new grant. I think it's called the Minnesota Active Transportation State Infrastructure Program. The bright part about that one, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Chuck, but that funds 100%, and it has a 2023-24 build out. So that's the one we are going to be trying very hard for. Also, then in your packet, we do have the monitoring well data from the MPCA on the monitoring wells. I guess you want to see it in the packet. It does get a little bit lengthy, or you just want to note that, yes, it has been sampled. Doesn't matter.
Defer to you, Ron.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Any questions for Ron? Great, thank you. It's our opportunity for our public open forum. If anybody's here to talk to the council on anything that's on the agenda or not. You don't see the lineup out the door. All right, we'll move on to the adoption of our consent agenda. And then just a couple notes, now that we have some more people here, I said we'll take Andy first with item D, then we'll move back up to A and B, but then I'll take West Central for the rubbish and recycles pickup agreement, along with, we'll probably just do the certification at that point as well, since you're here, Don. Move on. So So go a little bit out of order if we can, and then we'll get back to our regularly scheduled programming. So for our consent agenda, we have the minutes there listed on page 1, the Public Works Board policies, procedures, planning, and EDAP, along with the vouchers on page 2, totaling $723,555.82. Looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Yeah. Motion by Hertzberg, second by Soini. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None? That carries. Okay. Moving on to new business D, Fire Department, the Stearns County Mutual Aid Agreement on page 33. Andy, since there's no microphone, I'll just try and explain what I know from talking to you. This is our mutual aid agreement to ensure that if we're called out for longer than 8 hours, we can appropriately submit billing to any other entity in the county. Anything that happens to our equipment or to our firefighters still remains our responsibility as though it were one of our original calls. It's a pretty formal or pretty boilerplate contract that we've entered into before. This is mostly a renewal of something, and Andy is looking into contracts with Candy and Meeker and the other local areas as well.
Correct.
Okay. Miss anything?
Nope.
Okay. So with that, we're just looking for a motion to approve Resolution 2022-32, approving the mutual aid agreement, along with the agreement itself.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to approve Resolution 2022-32 approving the Stearns County Mutual Aid Agreement for use of fire personnel and equipment and the Stearns County Mutual Aid Agreement.
I have a motion by Thielen as stated on the action sheet. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Hertzberg, and as stated on the sheet. Any further discussion regarding that? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None? That carries. Thank you. All right. Thanks, Andy. Andy, since you're here, did you want to give a department update?
We had a house fire, a training house fire last Saturday. That was quite exciting and had a good turnout. We brought in 3 other departments, New London, Chain Lakes, and Eden Valley were there that also trained with us. We have had a great turnout at our fundraiser. We had over 800 and I believe it was 39 people that we served. We do not have final numbers as far as how much we raised, but I believe it was somewhere around that $7,000 mark. Don't hold me to that, but it was a great turnout. So thank you for everybody that helped out and made it there. We are selling our raffles. We've started doing a raffle now that is going to be drawn on December 9th, if I remember correctly. And that started the night of the dinner, so that's additional fundraiser that we're doing. And let's see, where else? Yeah, our team is great. We're still looking for 3 hires right now. We need 3 people. We do have an application, maybe 2 now, but I know 1 for sure. So if you know of anybody, throw their name out there. If it's somebody that you could see working or being part of the fire department, we would love to interview them and have somebody on. Neil.
Andy, well, what's the price of the raffle tickets?
They're $50 each. There's 400 tickets total.
400 limit, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else for Andy? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We'll let you go to your training.
All right.
Right, and then Superintendent Bullard is here to talk to us about the school's operating referendum.
Would you like me at the microphone?
Yes, please.
Okay. Hello. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I really am here just to bring you up to speed on what we have been doing thus far and find out if there are any questions that have come to you as council members or things that you've heard. I've had a number of community forums throughout the Painesville area community. So I've been at, we were in at the Sportsman's Den. We've been at the Green Roof Area Center. We were at the Tabernacle. We were at Shady's, and we have been. So we've been at a number of places to try to get community input and hear questions or concerns about the operating referendum. There are 2 questions on the ballot. The first is asking about an authorization for $460 per pupil. And then the second question is whether or not, if contingent on the first question passing, if the district can index the $460 for inflation. So there's 2 separate questions. And then obviously on the ballot, there are school board elections as well. I've got a couple of different pieces of literature that I'm happy to leave with people, but I really wanted to just open up if there are questions or comments or concerns that city council members have heard. I'm trying to put a last few bits of information out in the newspaper. I'll be having one more virtual town hall essentially, that I have an opportunity to, I guess, provide any points of clarity. And so I am going to open it up to you if there are any questions or comments or pieces of information that you would like me to have.
Well, the one thing that I want to know, since you've already been to all these places, what has been the most common question that you received?
There really has not been a theme. Unfortunately, they have not been heavily attended, which I would have liked to see a few more people present, because I think that would have helped me to have a better gauge of some of the questions that are there. There's been question about the agricultural land and whether that's taxed across the whole tax base. It is not. It is taxed at 1 acre, the homestead garage and building site. So that was one point of clarity. I've had people ask about their cabins and whether or not those are taxed at the same rate. And it really kind of comes down to, it depends. Is that your primary residence? If that is, then yes. And if not, no. I've had questions about how we compare tax base. The information that I have prepared that have been part of the presentations really compare how we are from a property tax for the referendum and how we compare to our neighbor and surrounding districts. There's a question about how do we compare with all taxation, and we are near the bottom to, we're like second or third to the bottom in all property tax values. The reason that information isn't published that way is because your tax base is different for a bond versus a levy. And so it makes it really a little bit more difficult to compare apples to apples, which is why the referendum data is purely comparing school districts in our neighboring surroundings, neighboring districts. So those are a couple of the questions that have come to me, but they've really been more so, why are more people not here? You know, I'm surprised we're not seeing more people in the room. And that's been part of my wondering as well. How do I reach people to get them additional information so they're informed?
One of the things that you talked about is how we compare to other districts in our area. How do we compare?
So currently, from an operating perspective, Painesville is at $39 per pupil, and we are the lowest. That goes all the way up to what we've compared is, and I'll get the actual numbers here for you. So I don't like to speak off the cuff because I have learned that's ill-advised. So I'll just give you our comparisons. Holy cats, my numbers are super little. So we are at 39. Eden Valley Watkins is next. They are indexed for inflation, and right now I want to say they were at 42 or 43 on the original presentation. But because they are indexed, they are now up to about $47 per pupil. Then we go over to Melrose, which is approximately $200, and then we go over to Belgrade Root Rosa, which is the next one. New London Spicer is the following, and Sauk Center is about $1,050-ish. So when you look at the trajectory, the average of those is about $510 per pupil. So that's all of our neighboring communities. And what Painesville is asking for at $460 would be just below that average. So again, that's kind of how we compare, and this is purely operating referendum, your voter-approved operating referendum dollars.
I don't like to argue or present things with the fear-mongering, but what happens if this is not approved?
Yep. So one of the things that we really, and the school board really has gone, I guess, down the path of this does not want to, we don't want this to be a threat, but we also want to be real. And so some of the things that we've talked about to this point are reduction of teachers, because we'd have to have larger class sizes. We've talked about approximately 8 FTEs. Now, that can vary depending on if we have people that retire and we can hire for less. So that's why I hesitate to use fast and hard numbers. But we've talked about possibly eliminating the block schedule. That's an area where I know we have some controversy at the secondary building, whether people like the block schedule or not. And so that's one of those areas where I've kind of talked about there are solutions to the block schedule issues versus not passing the referendum so it goes away. Because I want to be clear about that there's things we can do instead of not passing the referendum. We've talked about possibly increasing walking distance for our in-town riders. We've talked about increasing our sports fees and activity fees. Something that should be noted is that, because when our survey went out for the community to understand what the community would support and if there was a specific reason why the referendum last fall did not pass, one of the questions that was asked is what part of our programming do you feel we don't need or that is unnecessary? And so sports and activities, the fees, there was a discussion about increasing fees. I think something that should be noted is that that's 3% of our entire operating budget. And so while that could be a reduction or an increase, that's not going to generate a significant amount of revenue for us. The Painesville area schools is made up of 77% salaries and budget, or salaries and benefits. That's the primary focus of our operating budget because we're in the business of people. You know, we are in education, and education is delivered through teachers, paraprofessionals. We have adults supporting our food service. We have adults supporting our cleaning our buildings. Those are the costs of our district. So it's really ultimately when you look at reduction in your revenue, you're going to be reducing expenditures through your salaries and benefits.
And then as the city looks at its budget increase and its levy for next year, you know, one of the things we like to consider is the effect on the average household. If this passes, what are the projections for the effect on an average city or resident here in Painesville?
Sure. So what we've looked at is across the Painesville area school districts, we've looked at all of our surrounding communities. For a household that has an estimated market value of $175,000, the annual increase would be $125 or $10 a month. So that's our average increase across for a $175,000 home.
Anybody else have any questions?
I have a comment.
Yeah, Paul.
Sure.
Just previously, you had mentioned Belgrade, Root Narrows, New London, Spicer, Eden Valley, Watkins.
Yep.
Okay, co-ops. Now, if we don't start supporting our school, we're going to end up being a co-op somewhere down the road. And being 20 years from now, and I'm sure a lot of us aren't going to be on the council, it wouldn't hurt to look forward to make sure that the future is going to be secure in this town and ensure that it's going to keep growing and meeting the needs of not only the residents, but also the students and the school. So.
Thank you for that support.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I saw Neil's arm up first, and then I'll come back to you, Gene. Go ahead, Neil.
Basically, we're in this situation because the state hasn't kept up with their end of the funding.
Correct.
And our governor, in one of his TV ads, says he fully supports school funding, full funding. And he said it was a want, which I guess doesn't make it false advertising, but his want didn't get passed. What if it ever did get passed where schools were fully funded? Was that due to the levy if the levy is passed?
Sure. So I think what school districts are able to do with the levy is once it's approved, it is approved for a set amount of time. So for us, I mean, what we're asking for is a 10-year cycle. Now, if something would change and there would be an onslaught and schools are funded 100%, a school district does have the option of revoking a levy. The dollars that we're talking about, so for the school district, one of the things that we look at is what So the funding that comes into the school district is based on a per pupil formula. And that formula is generated, the amount of money per pupil is set by the legislature. So one of the pieces of data that I've been talking about within our communities is how over the course of the last 20 years, the funding that school districts have received has not kept up with inflation. So as a for instance, if the rate of the funding per pupil would have kept up with inflation compared to where we are, is approximately $1,100 per pupil. So when you equate that to what our student body count is, that would be about $1.1 million, okay? So we're talking about a large sum of money that would be coming into the school district. It would be an absolute game changer for schools, and I think it would absolutely be a way that we would alleviate burden on our taxpayers. Just as a point of reference, 78% of our school district's funding comes from the state of Minnesota. And currently, and I'm going to get the actual percentage, 9% is from the federal government, and then the remaining 13 is from our local revenue. And that local revenue includes taxpayer funds and fees that are paid for by the school district. If we rent out our facilities, those are considered local revenue as well. So as you can hear, that 78% of our funding comes from the legislature and the state of Minnesota. So when they're not funding it at a level that's adequate to support the school system, we're forced to come back to our taxpayers and ask the question.
And I think Chancellor being fully funded are probably slow.
I would agree. Yep. Unfortunately, last spring, so I've been in education for a number of years. We won't talk about how many years I've been in education, but I've been in education for a number of years. And last spring, when there was a significant budget surplus, it's one of the first times in my career that I've seen multiple organizations that advocate for funds at the legislature, for educational entities, all align with a common message about increasing the funding formula for school districts, because that's one of the ways that's the most universal across the state of Minnesota, and there still wasn't movement on that allocation. So it's a huge ask. It'd be wonderful, but yet here I am.
Gee.
My comments this is a new referendum, but it's replacing one that just expired, correct? So with a little more money.
With more money, yes.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. So, and over the course of years, when I looked at kind of the history, Paynesville it has historically renewed and added on. And in 2012, there was a renewal and an addition to the operating referendum.
Yeah. That's kind of what I've been telling people when they say, well, it's not, we're already paying one, it's just a little more.
Yes, yes.
Right.
Okay. So I will leave a couple of pieces of literature for people to, if you want to pick them up, share them, look at them. Please, if you have questions, don't be afraid to call me, send me an email. I'm happy to answer questions. I've had a couple of people in my office just help me understand, this doesn't make sense to me. They don't always like my answer, but at least they have a straight answer, right? And I think that's important, is I really want voters to be informed so that they know what they're voting on.
Thank you, Janelle.
You're welcome. Can I just leave this with you? Okay.
And feel free to put anything else on the table there if somebody else on the bill wants to grab it. Right, so then moving on, thank you here, Janelle, for presenting that. Hopefully people can hear it and get the information. We have our item B is a conditional use permit for a billboard on the August property. And we have, I believe Brad is here from Franklin to talk to us about it if we need to.
You want me to be up there, or?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, maybe that'd make it a little easier. Gene, I don't know if you want to give us a rundown from planning, or if Brad, you want to tell us about the project first?
It's pretty straightforward. It's a corner piece of property up by where the old Tom Thumb was, Judsey Construction recently. And they want to put a billboard there, so they just need a conditional use. And there's nothing around it except bare land.
Yep. And we appreciate the opportunity. We feel that we've met all the ordinances and everything, the guidelines that you need to do. we had an issue with a setback or with the gas company, and and we worked that out, and so we feel that we've met all the guidelines that the city is looking for. But I'm open for questions or.
Brad's issue that he is referring to is there is an easement on that property with the gas company, and the gas company will not let them build within that utility easement.
Overhang, we just wanted to overhang. They won't allow us to do that either, so. And with all the easements and all the things on that lot, there's really not much that could be on that lot. So,
This won't have any interference with vision for the driving? Or
no, it'll be set back quite a bit.
The only other question, the dentist owns the building. He is okay with this and has been notified?
Everybody within 350 feet of this property has been notified of tonight's meeting of, well, actually of the planning board's public hearing which they held. Nobody came and talked for or against it, and I have received no comments for or against.
I have not heard anything either. Gene, I'm assuming planning didn't have
Yes.
any big
No.
concerns?
Nothing.
Yeah, I share Neil's concern with that intersection and the history we've had there with visibility issues and whether or not that could create a potential additional distraction. I also just have some thoughts on adding billboards to town in general, but our ordinance allows it, so we'll go with it.
Yeah.
So they will be 178 feet from that Lake Avenue Highway 55 intersection to the sign. Just to give you,
And it's high.
Was that number 55?
Yeah, and it'll be 35 feet high,
And it's quite high.
so.
and then from the Spruce Street Lake Avenue intersection, they are 85 feet.
Yeah, with the 30 or 25 foot right away and that kind of stuff, it really does change quite a bit with that lot, so it's moved quite a bit in the middle. Thank you very much.
So with this, thank you, Brad. We'd be looking for a motion to either grant the conditional use permits subject to the conditions listed on the action sheet coming out of our planning board, or deny the application of a conditional use permit.
I'll make the motion to approve the application for conditional use permit for Diane Marcus, because she owns the property.
Second.
We have a motion by Soini, seconded by Hertzberg. Any further discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None? That carries.
And they are aware that they'll need to apply for both a building permit and a sign permit.
Yeah.
So the building permit is for the footings and the actual structure, the sign permit is to have a building.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, continuing to bounce around a little bit then, we'll go forward to item J, the West Central Sanitation Agreement found on page 57 of our agenda.
Tell me update too.
And, no, not yet. We're not at that update.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
All right, so we have our West Central Sanitation contract, renewing that. Last touched on 2015. Thought we touched on it since then, but must not have. So.
We need to recess for your public hearing first.
Oh, thanks, Jennifer. Right, so we will take a recess from our business meeting. Jean was right, we do have to do the update. So we will open for the public hearing on our past due bills certification. Don, since you're there, you want to tell us about the past bills?
I think Belinda probably has the most recent update. There was.
Yeah, that was the update we received tonight. I think she got that at about noon today.
There might have been one after that too, I believe, right, Belinda? There were some people that were calling this afternoon to clean up, Mr. Mayor and City Council. And it's a pretty short list. I believe there's only 6 on there.
This is the latest one that
The
she...
latest one, okay. And so I'm here to answer, if there, we do this every year about this time, and to have a hearing for those that maybe would have any concerns about the billing for their trash and recycling collection. If they have any questions or concerns about how it's been billed or the service has been rendered, they can appear tonight. We've sent them notice of this and notice of the meeting and notice of the amount, and I'm here to stand for any questions on that, Mr. Mayor.
I'm good on that. Anybody? The list I have in front of me has 6 different accounts on it, which I think reflects what you said was the latest you had.
Yep.
Okay.
Who gets the 10%?
The city.
The city, okay, that's for the,
That's for sending out the notices, publishing the notice in the paper. Yep.
Okay. Right, and then were you here for the public hearing, sir?
The bill is paid, but I do have some comments I'd like to make on it.
Sure, if you wouldn't mind just stepping to the microphone so we can make sure we hear you. Let us know your name and we're happy to listen.
My name's Gary Lang, and I purchased some property over here in Cronus Avenue, and it's in a redemption period. I bought it from a foreclosure auction, sheriff's. And my main concern is that I'm getting billed for services when I wasn't even there, when I didn't even own it, from December of last year, 21, till April of this year. I bought it in May. And I briefly spoke with a lawyer, and they said that being that there's so many disclosure laws, I mean, if you guys are gonna put it on the taxes, I did a title search. There was no liens, no nothing on it, no assessments other than the regular levies. So how can this end up showing up after the property was built? Or I mean, bought, sorry.
I don't have an answer to that one for you.
Okay.
The property that you're talking about, is that one of the ones still on our list here? You said it was on,
No, it's paid, we paid it, so there wouldn't be any late fees and stuff on it.
yeah.
It seems to be the norm with this property, is paying all the bills, but no rights to it, and that's not your problem, but this is completely wrong.
Well, it's partly because it only happens once a year.
Right.
So something that's been.
I understand that, but when you do a title search, that's supposed to do a clear title. I mean, anything's supposed to show up on it. So if you guys are gonna assess it, that needs to be there. You're gonna have to do that more than once a year, and that's, I mean, what I got legal help, and they said that too. The way the real estate laws are with disclosures and everything, that this just can't be legitimate.
Bill, I guess I'd look to you if you have any thoughts on that.
I mean, there's a lot of things that don't show up on title searches. I mean, water bills, sewer bills, they don't show up on title searches either. There's lots of kinds of municipal buildings that don't show up on title searches. I mean, I don't know, you know, who says everything shows up on a title search. They don't. I mean, you know, clearly they don't. You know, it only shows up if it's already a lien.
Right.
There's no lien.
Or an assessment.
Yep. But if the lien's not recorded yet, it doesn't show up. But there could be a lien, there could be a mechanic's lien against your property for somebody who did carpentry work, you know, within the statutory time limit, and they filed their lien after you bought it, you know, and that wouldn't show up on a title search. There's many examples of things that don't show up on a title search. But I understand your frustration. It's not, I'm not trying to make light of it, but there are things where the lien can get filed later and somebody like you gets trapped because there's no notice of it. So if you're dealing with a seller who hasn't paid their utilities, sometimes those things are not fair to you.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I get that, but it's not, everything does not show up on a title search. And you know, if you have an attorney write a title opinion for you, they put all kinds of exclusions in their title opinion because there's things they can't know. If they're not of record, they can't find them.
Yeah,
And,
I understand that, but this was not, excuse me if I'm not saying this right, but it was not even recorded or thought about until just recently.
Yep, no, I understand.
But 6 months later, you know.
Yeah. No, I understand. That's the way this works, unfortunately, is that we get certifying these unpaid bills on an annual basis. And so that sometimes traps poor people like yourself who get caught in the middle of somebody else who didn't pay for the service. And I think you said it was a bank in this case.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you have any recourse against them. It should have been their bill. They were the property owner.
Oh, no, actually, yeah, well, one of the banks all cleared out of it, and then it's a foreclosure at sheriff's auction, so it's done. But he's got the redemption period. But I didn't even own the property when this was these bills were being accumulated. And the title search, I mean, I'm misinformed by my lawyer then that when you do a title search, everything should show up on there. And there's a certain amount of time to file a lien, within doing the work. Nowadays, there's pre-liens you have to file.
Sometimes.
So, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out if there's any way to get out of this.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, from the city's perspective, all the city can do is, every year we certify the delinquent accounts against whoever's currently owning the property or whoever's on the bill. I don't know that we've ever had occasion where the current property owner is different from who it's been billed to, at least not in my recollection.
That's another concern is the city has been billing a deceased lady on this property.
What I mean by the account is not owned by that, I don't mean like a renter, but where we've been certifying against a new owner. I don't think we've run into this. Oh, we have? Okay, Jen's telling me we have. It's it's an unfortunate thing that happens, and hopefully there's some recourse with either the bank or the estate of the person who owned it before, something that can get it straightened around.
The city's not interested in doing anything about it.
No, I don't think there's anything that we could do about it at this point, especially now that it's been paid. There's nothing that can be done.
And and the lien goes against the property. I mean, that's what ends up happening.
Right.
And I see down here from West Central's raising his hand. He might have some comments.
My comment would be, I didn't catch the gentleman's name, and I'd be glad to talk to you about it tomorrow on the phone or something if you'd have time and see what I can do for you.
I can, but I mean, it's pretty much resolved at this point.
Well, I'm just offering to help you out with
Yeah.
it. I'd look at the specifics, and if there's something I can do for the gentleman.
But I don't think this was really for service. I think it's more of just a city thing that you have to have the service so he doesn't get garbage picked up. It just so much a month gets, which is another thing that kind of irritates me. But,
Well, part of that is the state statute that a city has to
Sure.
provide services for the residents.
My issue is that the property wasn't owned, at that time.
Well, I certainly, Don, I appreciate your offer. Hopefully the two of you can exchange some contact information, and that goes into some other comments I have when we go back into our business meeting about the renewal of the contract. But, I don't know if there's anything the city can do, but I certainly encourage you to talk to West Central and see what, if anything, can be done there.
Okay. All right. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So this is not unique, it does happen in the water and sewer also, and, typically, on the other side of it, I know he got caught, but a lot of times we'll have, the closing agent or the people that are doing the title work for a prospective buy, they'll actually call and ask, is there any outstanding water or sewer bills, or can you estimate the final bill so that we can include that in those closing costs? So sometimes it's a buyer beware situation.
Thank you. Anyone else here for our public hearing? All right, then we'll close that. We were at the certification, so we just skip ahead to that and deal with that while Don's talking with the gentleman anyway. So let's go ahead to page 129.
Or one on our update.
Or one on the update, correct?
That was.
So, we're looking for a motion to certify the delinquent garbage and mowing to the county auditor to be put on the real estate taxes.
I'll make that motion.
Motion from Hertzberg,
I'll second it.
seconded by Slaney. Any further discussion on that? Okay, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None? That carries. All right. Then going back to the renewal of our garbage contract with West Central, back on page 57. And thank you for always staying on my case from public hearings. Neil?
The mowing was part of that
Yeah.
garbage and mowing. Okay.
Yes.
Yep. Sounds good.
Right, so. Right. Are you telling us, sir, that gas prices have gone up and it costs you more to run your trucks?
Among a few other things, Mr. Mayor, yeah.
Can't imagine that that would be true. Sarcasm for the minute.
Sure, that's fine.
No, one of the notes on here is whether or not it's gone out for bids, and that was something that I've given some serious thought to, is whether we should let this contract out for bids, or if, because it's one that doesn't need to be, we just go along with it. And boy, I just could not agree with this justification anymore. We've had excellent service with West Central. I mean, that's true. I mean, I've had good personal experience with missed pickups and things being made up, things always being made right. I don't know who the second person on my billing is, but I've never called to get it fixed. I think it's an issue with when our house was titled. Something we can talk about off the record, Don.
Okay. Please contact me.
Yeah, no, it's no big deal. The rates are reasonable and fair. We know we're gonna get good service with few complaints, yes. And if we bid it out, we could potentially get lower rates for our citizens, but I wonder by how much when our rates are this reasonable already, and are we going to be sacrificing the quality of service that we get in exchange? And how do we maintain that?
Didn't we at one time, Don, quite a number of years ago, one of the contracts, didn't we do that one year? We did different prices and we still chose to go with you.
I think you did surveys.
Yeah,
I
something.
think the city office was involved in surveying communities, neighboring communities, and Ron was a part of that at that time.
Yeah, I thought I remembered we did that once.
And we were low, and I can assure you today, Painesville is one of our, I've been in business, this is my 43rd year, and I got to tell you that Painesville is about the second agreement, municipal contract I was able to enter into in the late 80s, and we have been serving your community a very long time. I do appreciate it a lot. And the last thing I'm going to do is take advantage of that relationship, because your community's been somebody that put faith in my company a long time ago when I was growing. And so we tried very hard to take care of your community. I do have a few rates from the neighboring communities if you'd like to see them that we provide. I have some of those prepared for you if you'd like to see them, to see how you compare if you renew this agreement. It's still very favorable for Painesville compared to other communities in Stearns County.
I don't need to see it, but if you wouldn't mind just sharing a couple of them.
May I pass them
Sure.
on to you? Sure.
And if you wouldn't mind giving one to Jennifer as well, so that we can get some in the minutes.
And this was mentioned to me, you might want to see something.
Okay.
And so, we have not had any increases since 2015. I did meet on September 2nd with your city administrator and your public works administrator, and also with, I believe, Councilor Brick was at that meeting. And we discussed things that needed to be addressed in the current contract. There's about 4 or 5 housekeeping issues that need to be done and some changes that are done. The rates I have before you are just some neighboring communities in Stearns County. Part of what drives your cost here is Tri-County Commission, which is Stearns, Sherburne, Benton, controls where the disposal goes. Your disposal here does go to Pope Douglas Incinerator in Alexandria. They've been on a pretty aggressive price increase campaign, and so they're going up 4% a year at a minimum. And just in the period of time since 2015 and our last renewal, it's gone from $76 a ton to $90.07 per ton. And it'll continue to increase at a 4% increase every year. And that is about 35% to 36% of our cost of doing business to provide that service for your community. And then the other things that we addressed in that meeting in early September was just the inflation index for CPI in that period of time of 7 years has gone up 23.2%, and that was from November of 2015 to July of 2022 this summer. And as you know, in the last 2 months or 3 months, it's gone up even more. So I'm just, it's something I haven't had to face in many years of doing business with inflation as high as it is. Truck driver wages have gone up 30% for us just to maintain a staff and provide service for you. Last summer was quite difficult. A year ago summer was quite difficult, and we had to have major increases to maintain our staffing. And we're still seeing that as part of what we have to do to manage the business, to provide services for our customers. Equipment costs have gone along with inflation and getting worse. There's equipment shortages out there. We're struggling to get enough new trucks to replace the old ones. I don't know what's going on with the manufacturers, but they're only manufacturing at about 50% of what they used to manufacture at. And so we're concerned about the next year or two. We're going to make it, but we could have some older trucks in the fleet for a couple of years until we can get enough new ones. Having said all that, I still think you'll find that our rates, if you go out to bid, we've been to all the bids in Stearns County, and we've been the successful winner of all the bids in Stearns County that we've gone to in the last year with a better rate by far than anyone else has received from any of the other companies that could provide you service. I'm quite confident that these are very good rates, Mr. Mayor and City Council, but I'm willing to do, what you need to do to look into it further.
One of the questions I have is, I know some collectors have been running into issues with buyers for the recycled products. Is West Central seeing issues with that? I'm seeing a head shake. But.
Oh, well, was it about 3 years ago, and it was called the Chinese sword. That was the name that was given. China was a major buyer for the recycled commodities for the United States and around the world. And their environment was suffering to such a degree that their government or whatever made a big change. And they canceled all commodity purchasing agreements, which over 40% of the United States commodities, recycling commodities, were being shipped to China. And when you took 40% of the buyer away from that market, there was a huge glut of recycled product in this country with no home. And so we saw we were paying up to $70 a ton, almost what we had to pay for trash. We were paying almost that much to dispose of, not throw away, but to have the recycling taken care of. We have a long-term contract, and we're a major provider of commodities. We partnered with a company called Demcon out of Shakopee. It's independently owned, private firm, a large firm that has quite a large sorting operation in Shakopee, Minnesota, and we're one of their major customers. And so we're comfortable with that agreement that we'll continue to have an outlet for recyclables. They did go up this last year. They were increasing in value. Recycling usually goes up when fuel goes up. The other thing we're seeing right now is recycling is plummeting again. I think it's maybe a recession. I'm not an economist, but I think it has something to do with maybe some recessionary actions that are taking place, because we've seen cardboard drop in half in the last 3 months, and plastic as well. It's not going to affect your contract because we have this commitment with Demcon, and we're comfortable that that'll last for us throughout the term of this agreement. We're not concerned about being given, but the value is going down quickly again, even though petroleum is high, which is an oddity. I haven't seen that before. That is an oddity.
Great. Anybody else has any questions or comments on this? Otherwise, we're looking for a motion on the agreement.
I'll make the motion.
Nope, Ron's got it.
Ron's got some.
A couple things from the committee. Yet the resident, or we did have one person that did request a change in the contract to add a second recycling bin, which I think you've seen is in there. And then the city also has put in there, added 50 cents to our franchise fee. So it's going from 50 cents to $1. That is part of this.
And I will just say that the thought from the Budget and Finance Board, at least as I look at the increase there, is, I'm grateful that we have trucks running on our roads, but it costs more and more to maintain roads with heavy garbage trucks running on it. So that increased franchise fee, as far as I'm concerned, goes to help pay for that maintenance and upkeep. I don't think that had been changed for quite a long time, was my
I think
recollection.
that's
30 years.
2 or 3 contracts ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a long, it might be go back to 30 years ago.
I was gonna say, it might be, never have been any.
It's been a long time.
Kind of like our snow removal downtown. So now I'll make the motion to approve the garbage, rubbish, and recyclables pickup agreement between the city of Painesville and West Central Sanitation.
There's a motion by Soini, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Hertzberg. As stated on the action sheet, to approve the garbage, rubbish, and recyclables pickup agreement between the city of Painesville and West Central Sanitation. Any further discussion on that? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? That carries.
Thank you, Mayor, thank you, Council. Again, my phone's always available, if anyone want to call me, talk about anything, I'm glad to try to resolve it.
That's great, and thank you for working with this gentleman here. I hope we can work something
We'll
out.
talk tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you. All right, going back up then, item C, the Morozic variance, page 23. No action on that tonight. Looking to set a public hearing. Just get back there. We had a proposed date.
I think it was November 28th, if I remember.
Yep. 6:15.
So they are seeking a height variance. Our new ordinance says that you cannot exceed 16 feet to the peak or the roof surface, and they want to be 18 feet 2 inches. A couple reasons why. He wants to install a vehicle lift, which would require the increase in height, and also they have a vehicle with a carriage on top that is required to have a 10-foot door. They did research scissor trusses, and that's not a viable option.
All right, we will hear more about it at the hearing. Otherwise, for right now, we're just looking for a motion to set that hearing date.
I'll make the motion to set the Morozic variance public hearing Monday, November 28th, 2022 at 6:15 p.m.
All right, I have a motion by Hertzberg. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Thielen, setting a public hearing on the variance, November 28, 2022 at 6:15 p.m. Any further discussion on that? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? That carries. Okay. Going on then to, nope, not D. Moving to E. There we go. Bill suggested some changes to our tobacco ordinance with the administrative penalties, bringing in line with state statute. Policies, procedures reviewed and recommends approval. Just looking for any thoughts before it's posted for the 10-day requirement. Get it posted.
I will post if you so desire.
I think we're good to go. Yep. Thank you. Right, going on then to item F, the LELS union agreement. This is something that came to our attention after a recent event where officers were hired over. Historically, they had been reimbursed at time and a half, but generally speaking, officers who worked events were also working full-time. Now that we have a part-time pool, at least one or maybe more of the officers who were hired for an event had not reached the full-time 40 hours or 43, 45, wherever your overtime starts.
84 in a 2-week period.
84 in a 2-week period. Thanks, Cody. So they could not be paid overtime according to the contract. This is a memorandum of understanding that says, look, if the city's getting paid for an event, let's pay time and a half. It's something over and above. The city is not losing money on this. With the fee schedule that's being adopted, or has been adopted already, I can't remember if we've passed it or not, this will not be a revenue loss for the city. It's basically going to be a wash or a possible small net profit. But this is just a memorandum of understanding with the union so that we can do this in the future. Anything you want to add to that, Cody, that I missed?
Just that the city had been billing like $45 an hour to pay us when other cities were billing the same city $75 an officer. So that would be a good idea as well.
I think that's what we're going.
I think it's in here.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I think that that's important to put in there. And then that, like you said, that's been past practice.
Right, so policies and procedures reviewed and recommends approval.
I'll make the motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between the City of Kingsville Law Enforcement Labor Services, Inc. 489.
Right. A motion by Sonia, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Thielen, as stated on the action sheet, to approve the MOU between the city and LELS 489. Any further discussion?
I guess I brought up at policy and procedure, the only concern I have is if you get too pricey, there are private security companies that may come in cheaper and you could end up not getting the job.
Yeah, well, they reach out to us specifically, whether it's the Ledge up in Wake Park that has concerts. They want police officers that work in the area to do it. Just like, I think the event at hand was the Firefest concert in Cold Spring. They request specifically law enforcement officers from the county. I think there was roughly 25 or 30 from different departments around in Stearns County that they want. And other cities have been billing that $75 regularly for years. So yes, it is possible that they could, but I don't think that they want a security company just to come in and do it.
Right, I'm just saying if it got, sometimes somebody might say, well, we can save some money here.
One thing that just dawned on me, and I didn't think about it when we discussed it at the committee meeting, was I don't think a private security company has arrest power.
Yeah, and that's also difference there, is not only issues with that, but also I think that familiarity with how things are done. I don't think they're gonna want a security company to do it. Just like, I mean, even for instance, like the school here, I think if there's a good working relationship with the police department and, that relationship, I think that there would be cons to having a security company that's there cheaper.
Yeah.
I think you might suffer consequences in caring about it, but also the services you can receive. So it is possible that could happen. I don't see that happening.
Well, it's kind of like everything else, you get what you pay for, I guess.
Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely, yep.
So,
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? That carries. Thank you. All right. And then we'll get that signed yet tonight, Cody, if you want to stick around and do your part. I don't know where it is, but we'll take care of it.
I'm on all night.
Perfect. Oh, I'm gonna do it right after the meeting. I'm not sticking around until the wee hours. Ron, do you want to tell us about the SCADA system?
Okay, very quickly, the first SCADA we got was in 2012, and then I think the other portion that came in 2014 when we did the water plant. And when we got it, they pretty much did not recommend going on a program where we receive automatic updates. It's now caught up to us, and they are greatly needed. This will also include going from a Windows 7 to a Windows 10 unit. And obviously you can see Automated Systems is the company that we worked with for many, many years. We looked at getting a second price. However, when you go to that, they would basically be starting over, writing a new program, new computers, and you can see it gets much more expensive. Public Works did look at this, and they did recommending going with Automatic Systems and going with the upgrades.
And you haven't had any issues with this company's system?
No, they've actually, they've been good. And I guess I would like to see, or to come out of the sewer equipment reserve fund.
This figure, is this a yearly figure or a one-time figure?
No, this is a one-time figure,
Okay.
yes.
So I understand if we don't want to do automatic updates because Microsoft can push something through that's going to screw with everything they've got, so we need to check all of that first. But is there a way to get on an annual or a semi-annual update cycle rather than waiting a decade?
Absolutely. And that, yes, once this is complete, I thought we'd want to receive an annual update instead of, and they somewhat agreed that's kind of the direction they are going now.
All right. So for purposes of tonight, we have a recommendation from our Public Works to move forward with the quote from Automatic Systems, the amount of $10,891, with the funds coming out of the Sewer Equipment Reserve Fund.
I'll make the motion to approve the quote from Automated Systems in the amount of $10,891.
Funds coming out of Sewer Reserve?
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
I have a motion by Iceberg, seconded by Soini, as stated on the action sheet, with the addition that the funds come out of the Sewer Equipment Reserve. Any further discussion on that? Ron, rather than just coming out of the Sewer Equipment Reserve, should it not also come out of the water reserves as well?
Oh, thank you. Yes.
So 50/50?
50/50.
Neil, would you amend your motion to a 50/50 split between the water and the sewer reserves?
Yes, 50/50.
Hey, Gene, are you going to second?
Yep.
Okay. Can we do it that informally? Okay, getting nods, we're good. You know, once upon a time, I thought it would be really fun to go strict Robert Rules of Order.
It'd be fun.
Be fun.
All right, so motion to approve the quote from Automatic Systems, we have $10,891, with the funds being split equally from the water and the sewer equipment reserve funds. Any further discussion on that? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None? That carries. Okay. Item H, the conflict of interest policy and reporting form. While Tarek walks up here, I'll give the rundown. Tarek has been meeting with the LCCMR on our water contamination project and the grant that we received from the legislature. And one of the things that the LCCMR said is, oh, y'all need to have a conflict policy. And we said,
What?
for what? And they said, well, we don't exactly know, we just need you to have a conflict policy. And then they found a draft model for us to entertain. Tarek revised it. I made some additional revisions. Basically, we're not just going to get into business with Chuck for the sake of getting into business with Chuck, because we all have business. Because none of us are investors in Bolton and Mink. It is, I mean, we joke about it because of the way that it came up, but it is actually really, I think, important that we be aware of it. You know, a previous council member did business with the city as far as leasing storage units, and that gentleman was very quick to point out that there was an interest there, and he bowed out of any discussion and appropriately recused himself. So I think, you know, this only says, yes, stay out of discussion, stay out of voting, but also, you know, fill out a formal declaration declaring that conflict of interest. It's out there. I think it's important so that we know, you know, we're not in this to personally benefit ourselves at the expense of the taxpayers. So we jest because of the way that it came about, but it is serious at the same time.
We've had that before with council people signing it.
Yep.
I mean, I had to sign one a few times.
Yeah, when I contacted first the League of Minnesota Cities to ask them about the conflict of interest policy and to, you know, give us a template to work on, they didn't really have one either. So there aren't that many cities that have this policy in place. And when I reached back to, it was actually the Department of Administration that is handling this for LCCMR. They're the ones that are requesting this, the Department of Administration, and they said they'll look into it and get back to me. They did. They had a template of a smaller city as well. So that's what we kind of use as a guide.
Yeah, we need, this policy I think needs to be in place before we can start work on the water study, is that right?
Yes, as soon as it's in place, I will send it to them, and then, you know, they'll let me know the next step.
Okay. So with that, we're looking for a motion to approve the conflicts of interest policy and reporting form.
I'll make the motion to approve the conflicts of interest policy and reporting form.
Okay, there's a motion by Soini. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Thielen. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Carries. Right.
The annual reporting form is a little interesting to me. It seems like you're supposed to foresee at the beginning of the year anything that could come up during the year. It seems a little bit of a reach, but I guess it's a good goal.
Yeah. I think it was the city of Harmony is what had this form
Yeah.
originally. We lifted it from them.
I know when we had them before, there were a couple of us that had to fill them out at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, they were an affidavit.
Yeah.
That's a little bit different, but
Okay.
that's a form to comply with a statute where you have situations that involve,
Purchasing goods.
yeah,
That was it, yep.
small purchases of goods. I think that used to come up with a few council members from time to time.
Jean and Kate.
Yeah, okay.
Alright. Moving on then, item I. One of the things that has been discussed at some of the department head meetings and among staff is looking at declining revenue in the DMV for various reasons. I think Melinda has laid them out in here pretty well. But with that declining revenue, are there ways that we can increase it? One thought was there's a real untapped market of people who need access to a DMV after work hours. Litchfield is open on Saturday, so when there was discussion at policies and procedures on what day and what time should we stay open, we sort of said, well, we shouldn't compete with Litchfield on Saturdays, unless there wasn't a ton of interest in working Saturday mornings.
Not much.
So the conversation was then, well, what about some extra time on Mondays? And one of the benefits to keeping some extra hours on Monday, one, there's willingness to do it, but we're not competing with any other DMVs in the area for those hours. On most Mondays, there's some sort of a meeting happening here at City Hall, be it a council meeting, a planning meeting, or something else. So somebody is going to be here to back up the person who's working in the DMV anyway. So there are always at least two people in City Hall to ensure safety of the people working and stuff like that. So Mondays until 6 seem to be the best time. Minutes pretty much lay it out. We think we need to give this a test period and kind of commit to at least a year so that we see it through some cycles. Jennifer can probably speak to this with a little bit more precision than I can, but basically things in the DMV move in cycles, with everyone coming in February to get their 1 tons and their large trucks renewed. Your camper licenses and things like that coming in. Various things due at different times of the year seem to be the rush. So give it through some seasons, see how it works, meet on it quarterly, so that if we have a period where we're like, no one is coming in, and there's some real good reason to pull the plug or change something, we can do that. But we think we should probably look at really a commitment of a year for this. And it should be with little extra expense, if any, to the city, as whoever would be working late that Monday would come in later as well, so they wouldn't be staying any extra.
Yep, that's correct.
So policies, procedures recommends Mondays at 6. Linda and Jody are both willing to give that a try, starting November 14, and they are working on an advertising campaign to get rolling out to advertise that this is up.
I'll make the motion to extend Painesville motor vehicle hours 6 o'clock on Mondays, effective November 14th, 2022. And this will be done for 1 year with quarterly reviews.
Second.
And I have a motion by Hertzberg, seconded by Soini, to extend the Painesville motor vehicle hours to 6 p.m. on Mondays, effective November 14, 2022, for a period of 1 year with quarterly reviews. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None? That carries. Great. Hey, coming again out of policies and procedures, so don't anyone think that we don't do anything. Some revised job descriptions, we talked a little bit about these at our working session. These were not on the working session agenda. These are the other ones, but with some things being shuffled around and changed. There were some changes made to the city administrator, EDAP director description, the deputy registrar, customer service specialist, and social media specialist job descriptions. I will just call out and highlight again, one of the biggest changes there is with these descriptions, minutes would be handled between primarily, almost exclusively by Kristen, probably with some light backup from Tarek as needed. So Jen would no longer be at our city council meetings, and Bill would be really lonely.
Well, Kristen will be sitting there.
Well, you can still come if you want.
You're always, they're public meetings, Jennifer.
Yes.
I don't know how we're gonna do it without her. She's got a long history, you know.
She's gonna miss us.
Bill's got a plan for me. I'm gonna be your open public forum every meeting.
Go through the agenda and
A
talk.
new subject every time.
I just can't wait for it to always start with, well, this might get me fired.
But I'm thinking outside the box.
No, I will say, I always know that I'm going to hear something at least interesting when Jennifer starts it with, this might get me fired, but.
Is this starting like January 1st then or something?
These would start right now.
Right now? Like next meeting?
Like I'll be here next meeting unless I'm requested to come.
I guess Jean's got a point, which is, do we want to hold off on these until we get the other ones reappointed and approved?
Jennifer doesn't want that.
I know.
That's up to you guys.
Well,
What are
probably
your
this
thoughts
is a
on
good
this,
time to do.
Mary?
I say we do it now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that usually business is a little light as far as meetings and stuff for November, December, so it's maybe a good time to start.
Your busiest months are April and October
Yep.
for meetings.
So it is probably a good time to start. Okay, if we insist.
As I understand it, most of these job duties, everyone's already doing anyway. The biggest
The
thing.
biggest thing is the minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the housing incentive program, that's entirely going to be turned now. To go on.
It fits to, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I'll make the motion to approve the city administrator, EDAP director, deputy register, customer service specialist, and social media specialist / clerical assistant revised job descriptions.
So, motion by Soini, as stated on the action sheet, seconded by Hertzberg, to revise the listed descriptions. Any further discussion on those? Okay, and remembering, if we don't like things, we can always change it back.
Change the job descriptions again. Yeah, right.
All right.
Nothing's set in stone, right?
Nothing's set in stone.
No?
Nope. We pulled the sword out of Excalibur once, we can do it again. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Carries. All right. Neil suggested at our working session that we look at scheduling another one this year. I think he's 100% right. I was also going to ask Janelle Bullard while she was here if she wanted to join us for our community working session. Oh, she already gave you dates. Look at you, Jen.
So typically, we have our community working session in April and October. April got kind of away from us and got a little bit busy. So I thought if we're going to have another working session at the end of the year to add that community session at the same time. So I asked Janelle of these nights which one would work, thinking it would be after the election. Maybe she could talk about if it passed or if it didn't, maybe introduce her new board members. Her recommendation would be Thursday, November 17th, or Wednesday, November 30th. She did remind me that the new members aren't really available, they don't start till January 1. So maybe they would come to the April meeting. Thursday, November 17th is wine club, so that would not be a great night for that meeting.
Nope.
Wednesday, November 30th, we do have 5 Wednesdays in November.
I mean, we can make it work, but Jean and I are traditionally not available Wednesdays.
Nobody has told me that.
No, he went to choir, he joined choir, and I have bowed out of choir, but he's trying to get me to go back. So that's all.
But, you know, that's what she told me.
So those are.
We can make it work, that's fine.
The 30th will be, yeah, we'll make it work.
Anybody have an issue with the 30th? Megan doesn't count?
I know Megan tends to not want Thursdays because she's usually typically working at the liquor
Yep.
store on Thursdays, so.
She usually has Wednesdays off too.
Wednesday, November 30th at 5 or 5:30 for the community. Can you get it done in a half hour?
Yeah.
5:30?
Yep.
And then 6 PM, our regular work session.
Are we inviting the township that never shows up?
Yep.
So it'll be the school, the township, and Central Care.
In a half hour? We can do that.
Anybody else?
Do we need Centricare? Yeah, we should.
Where's this gonna be held at?
Here.
Here.
Well, you will probably be introduced to the new administrator.
Oh, yeah. Maybe we better make it 5.
Yeah, do it 5.
Okay. 5 o'clock, school, Central Care, township, city.
Talking Central Care, everybody get invited to the
Yep.
tour.
Yeah, sent it over to.
We're supposed to RSVP. It said in there.
Mhm.
I have it on good authority, Belinda would not mind if we parked in her yard.
She won't care. She'll still be at work.
Do we have a motion to set the special city council community working session for Wednesday, November 30th at 5, and a special city council working session for Wednesday, November 30th at 6?
You got it.
I got it from Soini. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Thielen. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. That carries. Okay. 86. Here we go. Right. So we have gone through the THC ordinance has been posted. Bill put it into ordinance form. Jen took the application from the city of Stillwater and put Painesville on it. I looked at it. I think it seems totally fine. I sent it to you with the goal that we should probably just use what works and isn't broken. I think the biggest question is, if we're going to do this, what is a reasonable application fee? I know I have heard from one person downtown who might be interested in selling it, who thinks that charging a fee of $3,600 like we do for the liquor fee is exorbitant.
I agree.
We should not be that high. I know that there are others who say that $3,600 is not enough and we should double it. So
The ones I've seen are more like 50 or 100,
That's what I would like, a tobacco license.
but that doesn't mean, I mean, I've looked at a million of them, but the ones I've seen are not high.
Yeah.
But they also don't have the same penalties that ours have.
They're also high.
they are also high. Yep.
But it's an add-on license. It's not, well, it can be a,
That's not, I mean.
It can't
I would-
be a
I would guess
standalone,
that
yeah.
most people who are going to apply for that license don't have any other license.
yeah,
But
I mean, it reads to me, maybe,
yeah.
but it reads to me like a deterrent. So why have an ordinance at all if you're kind of
I think
making,
you have to bear in mind that licensing fees are not supposed to be a generator of revenue necessarily. They're supposed to offset the costs of
You
issuing.
gotta go.
I was gonna step off for a minute.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, under our ordinance, I guess, we have, what we have to look into for background stuff, and so we need to take that into consideration, but beyond that, I think we gotta be careful of how high we go with licenses.
Is 500 too much?
I was kind of thinking.
If you're doing background and all this police work,
I don't know that it's too much. It's, you know, it's a little bit high, but it's probably defensible. I mean, you've got things you've got to do, I guess.
I mean, I guess part of my thought is I don't really want 10 places selling the crap. If there's one or two, it's too many, but whatever.
I kind of had 500 in mind too. Or 250.
Well, why don't we, at 7:25, I know Paul had to step out, looked like he had a family thing. Let's just take a quick 5-minute recess. I'm gonna grab something to drink and then hopefully get some input from him if he can make it back. So we'll adjourn until 7:30.
Recess.
Recess until 7:30. I'm calling another meeting.
Well,
We are not pausing the recording, we are still live.
Okay.
Oh.
And Paul's back, so. We just took a recess for a couple minutes.
Sure.
Is there a story? We're going to be go back in.
So it was
Nothing.
He's like, it was real important.
Well, it actually kind of was. So my son was out at the lake and my mom and dad drove out there.
Somebody needs to take the keys.
So he drove them back, and my son's wife met him here. And everything's going.
Yeah.
So what happened at the school? I'm totally ignorant.
They look like they're adjusting well. They seem like they're enjoying it.
Well, they need to be.
Yeah.
school. Well, they locked up a kid for a threat. He had a list who he wanted to take out. And multiple circumstance, he has city incorrect.
So he's not happy about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's what she told me that when she has talked to the one about it.
Well, they've got us on that street.
Yes, that helps immensely.
And then, yeah, they're just enjoying it.
Okay.
No matter what you do, it's not right.
Well, of course.
And Jennifer? You lost? No. It's a.
But yeah, that's the hot.
No, it's
I got 28.
I do.
Well, that's scary stuff.
It's the clock on the wall that's wrong.
No, it was after hours.
Don't let me forget to grab those checks. I should have done it now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not used to doing that.
That's why I made you a mailbox.
I know, but I don't even know where the mailbox is. I mean, you did tell me. I've not been there yet. I'll just change the address on the next bill.
All right. It's 7:30, so we're back. Paul, I just took a recess. I didn't know. I know you had some stuff going on. I wanted to make sure you didn't need to deal with that.
Yep, thank you.
So we were talking about the amount of a fine. Neil, now, thank you. I'm super late tonight. The children have been interesting. No, the amount of a license fee, Neil threw out $500. Jean said that's about where she was thinking as well. I guess my biggest concern is, and I don't know that it's really even a concern so much as a question, but where's the justification for $3,600 for a liquor license? If we're saying that $500 on THC is really kind of stretching it.
I think, you know, it's the same kind of background check, insurance verification kind of things that the city has to do. I don't know if that's the right fee. I don't know, if you did a survey of other cities' fees, if we're high, lower, in the middle, I really don't know. But, this is, the fee on this, this is, in some ways is similar to tobacco, but there is an element of a background check, just verification that we don't have violations of law that put you on the wrong side of the requirements of our ordinance. So there's a little more to it. I think you have to make a judgment on what's justified by the cost of reviewing and issuing a license. I mean, $500 isn't ridiculous. It's,
Well, my thought is, there's gonna have to be some balances and checks along the way with this. And it's gonna put some more time constraints on those that have to check that out. So even though this is not supposed to produce revenue, I think it will be reimbursing, if I can use that word. Because from what the chief of police said, it's going to put more burden on his department. And I think that $500 is a good start. That'll weed out anyone who's not real serious about it. And if they think it's too much, then have them come to the meeting and we'll discuss it.
Well, I think starting somewhere like that, and then kind of watching it for a year, see how many people are doing it, how much volume and sales is going on, then we can adjust it.
All right. I'm good with it.
Okay.
I'm not hearing any disagreement from anybody across the board. So we have the proposed ordinance in front of us. We'd be looking for a motion to approve the ordinance along with the application fee of the consensus of $500.
One question, so do you want these to be annually similar to our tobacco and our refuse and so like January 1 to December 31st?
Yes, that's how I've always envisioned that, yeah. And anything yet this year will be through the end of the year.
Yes, and then not be prorated.
We can wait till January.
Okay.
You need a motion to
I
approve?
do.
Motion to approve ordinance number 28, third series, official summary of ordinance number 38, third series, application for cannabinoid establishment license, and the application fee of $500.
Okay, there's a motion by Soini as stated on the action sheet with an application fee of $500. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Thielen. To approve ordinance number 28, third series, the official summary of ordinance number 28, third series, the application for cannabinoid establishment license, and the application fee of $500. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion does carry 3-1. Thank you. Right, then we go on to the ice arena. This was held over from our last meeting. Neil had asked for some additional background information. I see that Jen included some. I don't know if you had any additional questions, Neil.
Yeah, I read it all over.
Yep.
Quite interesting.
Yep.
My own feeling is for about the last 5 years, we paid them the same that we were paying when they were actually running the compost and doing something in return for the contribution. And I don't know, I'm at the point, we pay the $2,500 for the outdoor skating. And that's open whenever Mother Nature cooperates. Most cities our size, if we had our own hockey facility, it would be an outside arena with a warming house, and we already have that with our existing contract. I don't think we need to do this. They want to charge for indoor skating. People that are professional figure skater and want to do this, they can pay like professional tennis players or anybody else. I learned how to skate on an outdoor pond. There's quite a story I don't want to go into, but that's how I learned how to skate. I enjoyed it very much. And we don't have to be marshmallows. You can skate outside just fine. That's for the weather.
This came about when we're looking at doing the agreements with the township on several other items as well. And the question did come up, and I think maybe it was you, Paul, who mentioned like how many people or how many residents of Painesville actually use the open skate time. We didn't know, they didn't know, township didn't know. So the way we put this agreement together is only for this season to give us a chance to see how many residents actually use it, and then after the season's over, then we decide, well, what is fair, because the association was actually looking to increase the amount because they said their costs went up and they have a lot of other expenses that have gone up as a result. And our reply to them was, well, nobody knows how many residents use it. How about we find out how many residents use it first in this coming season? Then after that, we can make a determination if we're going to continue, if we're going to increase it, or what rate we will agree to.
Yeah, if nobody's using it, there's no sense in us paying them.
I just feel we've been abused for too long. It's time, they're like any other organization. If they need more funds, they can do like our fire department, have raffles, get out there and do some work, earn some money. Don't always go to the taxpayer. I'm tired of it.
The Hockey Association does their own fundraiser with seven.
More than one.
Yeah, with calendars and various stuff. The other thing too is that, one thing that the arena up there does for open skating on Sundays, or whatever they have, is that they allow free use of skates and equipment for those who can't afford it, don't have any, but they want to skate. And that's a nice caveat that if the residents would take advantage of it, it would be moving in a positive direction. But I don't know how many people actually know about that. You're not going to be seeing too many more hockey arenas being built because they're getting to be so darn expensive to build. So I think if we were to keep close to what we have now and also let the township know that we're going to reevaluate it and finding out how many people are actually using it, then I think that's a better approach than just trying to pull numbers out of wherever and having them come to us to look for more money. Because I remember at one time, Annandale Maple Lake, they had their varsity home games here in Painesville until they could get an arena built. Yeah.
Gene, what are the Historical Society's hours during the summer?
And before,
Every day?
Tuesday through Saturday.
So for about 16 weeks a year, there's open 4 days a week for 6 hours at a time?
12 hours a week.
12 hours. Okay. I'm going somewhere with that, just hold
No,
on.
5 days. It's 5 days a week, so it's 30 hours.
And how much does the city contribute every year?
Well, it's 5,500. Exactly the same.
So 5,500 and we get 480 hours for our residents for a rate of $11.46 an hour. Or 5,500 for 52 hours. $106 an hour is what the city's paying for open ice time. Which, if I recall, the listed rate on their website for an hour of ice time is $150 an hour.
That's cheap.
So, and our parks budget for this year, what we budgeted for was $145,209. And round up my last total, we have 8 different parks, including the new dog park.
Yeah, that's 7, now it's 8.
So that's an operating cost of the parks, just on average, of $18,151 apiece. And if I'm a resident of town, I can access those parks 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. It costs the city $2 an hour to rent a park.
Can you be in the parks all hours of the day?
No, you can't.
Oh, they do close.
I'm just saying.
No, they shut down at 10 o'clock.
In fact, significantly cheaper.
Yeah, your point is made.
Yes.
Thanks, Cody.
Yeah.
Just saying, I want
Mr. Mayor, to do the
to make
But you're
sure,
gonna throw them out if there's
I'll
any-
make sure I'm doing my
Senior
job.
Center, I think we're contributing 5,000 this year.
5,000, community ed, we're contributing a lot.
Around 6.
My point is, this is probably the most expensive by-hour recreational amenity the city has.
So one of the problems that had arisen when that, before the arena was built, I don't know if you remember this, you might remember this, over by St. Louis Church.
Yes.
They had a rink there, they had a regular figure skating rink and the hockey rink. And that's where kids would go rink rat and get good. After school, go down there, get your fresh air. But where it's at right now, it's not within walking distance. And that's where the access to it has been a detriment, if anything. Because I've been up at the outdoor rink many times, and it's never used. So this is something that I think we should try to keep funding, but if we're not getting our money's worth, then we need to reassess what's happening.
But we got to talk too, that to do our own outdoor rink is way more than $5,500.
Oh, yeah.
The Hockey Association.
Well, just
We're already paying 2,500 for the outdoor.
Yes, we
rink.
are, okay, so yeah.
And then you have
That's
another
8,000.
55,
Yep,
and it's ridiculous what we're paying for skating.
yep.
Yeah,
You're
And
right.
like I said at the beginning, the skating is kind of specialized. You're either into hockey or figure skating. And if you're, it's kind of like the kid that's exceptional in playing tennis. We aren't offering a facility for them to become an Olympic tennis player. They're going to have to go to coaches and facilities that can do that for them. In a way, I feel this is subsidizing the hockey program. And then if you look at the hours they gave us, 9:30 at night, your beginning skaters are in bed. We aren't getting good time, and we get 1 hour here and 1 hour there, and it's like times where they don't have anything else going on, which I understand, but, it takes a young kid 20 minutes to tie the shoes, and 20 minutes to take them off. So how much time do you really have when you only get an hour at a time?
I'm not quite sure what the,
I say deny, I'm sorry.
I don't know what the Hockey Association charges, but I'm sure it's pushing close to 4 figures, just to skate for the year. And this is all indoor, where back in the old days, if you had indoor skating 3 times a year, you were good, that's why you didn't have to pay all that much. But the way society's changed right now, where everything's indoors.
But Neil's right, we are subsidizing.
We are subsidizing, there's no
For
doubt
hockey
about it.
players.
There's no doubt about it.
And I believe the school still, the younger kids go up there for 4 or 5 times, and you get the basics, and after 5, 6 hours, these kids are learning to skate.
Do you think it would be wise to talk to somebody from the Hockey Association and see what their input is on it? I know it's going to be tilted and biased one way, but at least it might give us a better idea.
That's what this is, they do talk.
Yeah, that's what
This
they
is how
want.
we came up with this.
Okay.
This is what they want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've been paying it for how many years?
Yeah, a lot of years.
On a contract that's null and void.
I'm inclined to agree with Neil and say, let's ditch it. My biggest concern, this is our most expensive by hour recreational activity. Parks are open daylight hours, so we have 2,509 daylight hours during the year, so it's $7.25 an hour. There we go. But it's a heck of a lot cheaper than 106 for a hockey rink that we can go to 52 hours at some unknown randomly
I
posted
mean,
time.
I agree, and I've always been in favor of it.
My biggest concern is if we drop this and then we realize, holy crap, this was being utilized by 3 out of 4 people in town, and we better get it back. We're not getting it back for $5,500 at that point.
That's true.
So if we're dropping this, we are saying no, probably on a permanent basis. My sense is that it's not being used by 3 out of 4 people in the city.
I don't think it's being used that much. And a lot of it is, like I said, when 9:30 to 10:30 at night, kids are in bed.
Playing video games.
My recollection, Neil, last year is the problem of us not getting our hours came up because you noticed it.
Yeah.
I don't think it was a citizen that brought it to our attention.
I saw it in the paper where they're charging, and I thought,
Yeah.
we're paying, how can you? I mean, the whole thing has been Mickey Mouse flip-flop.
Yep. So,
So to start out in hockey, skates are gonna be about $400 or $500, sticks are about $75. And then you've got all the other stuff involved, so there's a lot of capital that's spent by parents to start with.
There is, but when you start young, they give you all that stuff free for the first year.
For the first year.
For the first year.
Right, right.
And it doesn't get to that price range, so they're high school age.
Well, right, yeah.
They're not buying that high dollars.
Yeah.
I know, been there, done that.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times too, where some of these other hockey associations that have more money usually have some sort of income through pull tabs, where this one here doesn't, and this is where they're coming, asking us for it.
well,
Well, we're providing something that's really kind of for specialized players.
Mm-hmm.
How many people do pull?
And part of me thinks skating might be going in the realm of softball, and, things kind of go in circles. And it's hot, and then all at once, look, nobody's doing it. I don't think it's,
pickleball's the new thing now, but
Yeah,
for
pickleball. What are the accent areas there?
well, and another thing to consider as a city, we're taking over Killer Hill, which is free recreation for anybody that's got a sled. And a lot of kids would rather put on that hill than put on ice skates.
Well, is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to deny.
Okay, I have a motion by Hertzberg to deny the agreement. Is there a second?
I'll second it so we can vote on it.
Second by Soini to deny the agreement for contribution to the expense of the hockey center for providing open ice time to the city of Painesville. Discussion.
What does Ron think? Throw your opinion out there. We could use another. Do you see much usage of it? You're not up there though.
I guess I'm not up there enough
I know when we had the outdoor rinks down in the parks and stuff, they were used a lot.
used a lot back.
A lot.
What would happen if we were to give them half the amount and see where it's at?
We'd have to come up with a new agreement
Yeah, they would have to agree to it.
and then.
Yeah, because they already signed this agreement.
A lot more than what this is even.
We are going to get.
Never enough.
I think if we do that, then we're gonna be backing up against, them up against the wall that either, you're gonna have to work with something or nothing.
Just cut our hours.
And if it's not being used by the residents in the city, then I guess, the city's gonna be coming out ahead of that. But the opportunity isn't gonna be there either. So I think something is better than nothing.
We got outdoor skating. And I don't know why that's,
We are being
Not enough.
twenty towards the outdoor rink.
outdoor skating ought to be adequate.
So, okay,
We're not, United citizens.
we're still gonna be paying for the outdoor skating.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a different deal when it's done.
All right.
Totally soundtrack. Yeah.
Okay.
So there is.
And that's accessible, my understanding is there's no set hours on that.
No.
No.
Right.
The only problem we're gonna have with that is there's no supervision either.
No supervision, but
Well, Cody,
there's no supervision at Advanced Beach anymore either.
that's true. Okay.
I mean, we're living in inflationary times and every 5,000 is huge.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, I'm going to call the question. The motion is to deny the agreement, so an aye vote is to deny the agreement. All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And that does carry unanimously. All right. All opposed? Nay? That carries. Okay. All right, moving on then to the MPCA, the PFAS Memorandum of Understanding.
We
Ron?
don't have the condition there.
Jock?
Yeah, I'll take this one.
And it's hard to get that.
In your packet is a memorandum of understanding between the city and MPCA for PFAS monitoring. PFAS is polyfluoroalkyl substances. They're known as the forever chemicals. They're very common in industrial, residential, commercial applications. So what really the PCA is looking at doing is anybody in there, any wastewater treatment facility that has significant industrial users, which in the city we have a couple, is being asked to do this, basically to determine where these chemicals are and if they are in your waste streams. So basically what they want us to do is look at doing 2 tests in 2023 and 2 in 2024. They will fund the tests in 2023, and they are still trying to get funding for the 2024 test. So there's 2 tests per year. Basically what they're looking at, like I said, is define if these are in your community, and if so, they're looking to try to find the source of them so they can be reduced. You know, because trying to treat these would be very difficult and costly. So their goal is to find and reduce the source. So I think the Public Works Committee did look at this and recommended we move forward with the contingency that they pay for both years. So the MPCA is committed to pay the first year, but not the second year at this point.
You might note that you know, it's like a lot of contracts from the state, it's fairly confusing, but under the terms and conditions, it does say this is a voluntary agreement, can be nullified by either party at any time. So I suppose if you get to the second year and they haven't found funding, you could say, we're exercising our right to nullify the agreement, sorry. The next paragraph says, well, we might test your water anyway. But then I don't know how they're going to charge you for it if you've nullified the agreement. So, I mean, it's a confusing agreement, but
Probably be on their quarter.
That was one of the major, originally they sent this out and they were not willing to pay for any of the testing, and they got a lot of pushback from a lot of the cities because it is a fairly expensive test.
Yeah.
I think you do have the right to back out of it if the funding doesn't come along, and I don't think you had much risk by entering into it, and it's probably valuable information for the city to have. I mean, if we have that problem, we want to know about it, I'm sure.
What do you think, Ron, with AMPI and Mastermart, is that a good thing to do?
Oh, I definitely think, yes, it's a good thing that we tested. Potentially, I don't think AMPI has very much of a risk. However, Avon Plastics, what the material goes through there, that I think we need, definitely should find out.
Especially since they want to expand.
And I guess the biggest question is, okay, if we find it, what are the treatments going to be? Other than trying to go back to the source and eliminate the source. I think that's going to be the biggest push.
And if you look, there was actually, based on the test results, there's 3 different categories you're put in, depending if the levels are non-detectable or low enough, you basically quit sampling at that point. If they're elevated, then you get into the trying to identify the particular source.
So if we're too high, what kind of trouble could the city get into?
At this point, it's a monitoring plan to determine if they are.
Okay.
They've dealt with a lot of these. I think if you watch the news in the metro, they've had some big lawsuits with some pretty large companies over some of the
Okay. Well, I agree with what you guys said, which is if it's there, we need to know about it sooner rather than later, so. I guess I'd be in favor of a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion to approve.
Okay, I have a motion by Hertzberg approving, seconded by Soini. As stated on the action sheet to approve the MOU. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? That carries. All right, jumping to page 131. We met with Kathleen Schremo a couple weeks ago. She offered to buy a lot from us. She came in and closed on it last week, and we need a resolution formally approving the sale.
Motion to approve resolution 2022-33 regarding the sale of property to Kathleen Schromo and authorize mayor and city administrator to sign the necessary closing documents.
I have a motion by Soini. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Thielen. As stated on the action sheet, approving resolution 2022-23. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? That carries. Right, we have a number of pieces on here for informational. One thing that I thought of looking here on the DMV notes that Melinda has regarding why things are a little bit lower. As we're talking to people about our DMV, remind them that the city gets revenue from this. So for every set of tabs that they buy from us, or every driver's license renewal or title transfer they do, our property taxes stay just a little bit lower. There we go. Don't do it online. I'm in. Plus, there's hardly ever a line now. Now that we're through that post-COVID rush, things are back to a better sense of normalcy around here. Otherwise, we have some building reports. There's a notice from the Stearns County Environmental Office. MediaCom is raising their rates. The monitoring well data report on 162. Ron, I didn't see anything in there that we needed to worry about. Okay. We have our garbage rates from West Central, our police department reports,